have an age difference. We have life differences.
This is how you should live your life.
I got the faith, because to get the faith...
Got it. Well, let's jump into this.
This is the Old School, New School podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Old School, New School podcast. I am Will
never
Charles
gets old.
Egan. It never gets old. It's all new here. I'm Will Charles Egan. And as always,
Chris Meekins.
we're so happy you're here. And if you continually watch our podcast, like we're finding some people do,
Yes.
hit the subscribe
Good
button
story.
that is above Chris's head. We'd greatly appreciate it if you're on YouTube, subscribing to us and following us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you might be listening. We've had some fun discussions here before hitting record here. We almost did a whole
Which
separate
one are you
podcast.
talking about?
Yeah,
we
right.
were it's really strange how much we can talk.
We can just go back and forth. You're over here like, and this is a purely discipleship relationship.
Yes,
and I'm
yes.
like, I don't know, man. We've been talking for almost an hour. And we're going to talk for another 45 minutes.
All right, well, that's discipleship, man.
That's discipleship.
Discipleship. Find yourself someone in your life that you can talk about spiritual things. It's called discipleship.
That's exactly
And
what
our
it is.
church is focusing on that.
Yeah.
And we started off with, first of all, Will's mom,
Oh, yeah.
our number one listener.
She is.
She's probably the first.
Number one commenter, subscriber.
It's got to be great to have a mom that you have a good relationship with.
It
And
helps.
you're gonna go see what in Tampa?
Mom and I we're gonna go see Billy Idol
That's
in
awesome.
May.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Well, because I listen to a lot of like 80s hair metal or classic rock, 70s stuff, and it's so funny because I'll be listening to Billy Idol, and she's like, "I listened to that when I was your age. What are you doing listening to that?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"It's cool, Mom.
Yeah.
It's cool again." Like some of his songs are like back in the Hot 100 charts again.
Yeah.
There's this one song that's super popular with young kids on social media and everything just because it's like super nostalgic, 80s sounding with the synths and everything. And so people are listening to his music again, and he's making more money, and he just announced he's going on tour. The moment I saw he announced the tour, I was like, I'm buying tickets.
Mom.
Yeah.
We're going.
Mom, we're going for Mother's Day to see Billy Idol in Tampa. So that's going to be fun. And yeah, we have a good relationship there because that's like I would have never seen myself doing that, I think 10 years ago.
No,
It's like,
you never.
Ew, Mom. Gross.
Come on.
Gross, Mom.
Come on.
I'm 15.
Don't be stupid.
Yeah, come on, Mom. Gross. Actually, I was 13 10 years ago. That would be even more like,
Yeah,
get away,
that's
Mom.
13-year-old. Anyway, my kids, one of my sons, he's big Pink Floyd.
Oh, nice.
Which is
yeah, that's
like
you.
a long time ago.
That's right.
And then
Old music is the
it's
best,
best.
man.
And I was thinking, I was watching the other day. Anytime I see it, dun, 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 Mama.
Oh, yeah.
Who's that?
Ooh, Queen.
Queen.
One of
yeah.
the biggest bands in the world still.
And I mean, that was one.
That was the 80s.
Yeah.
And they're all
that is
almost
like
dead.
Everyone knows that.
Everyone knows Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah. Everyone.
I know all the lyrics to that song.
Yeah. And then Michael Jackson comes on. People are like, stop.
Mm-hmm.
I want to watch him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like maybe the
Wait a
most
minute.
popular
Wait a minute.
artist of all time.
We sang "Holy, Holy, Holy." We got.
All right. Yeah. Let's back it up.
Oh no,
and-
we don't listen to that stuff
Yeah,
anymore.
no. I only listen to worship music.
I know
now.
this is not where we're going today, but let's go there.
What, worship music and
Yeah. Versus
secular
like,
music?
Yeah.
Well, because
Is it legal?
you said something last week. We were talking about like
And it's been bothering me all.
I've been thinking about it nonstop. No, but you were like, well, because all the secular music that you listen to is like the 70s and stuff. And I was talking about my love for the latter decade, the 80s music. And I was like, oh, you know the band Toto? You're like, I have no idea what this is. Because you're like, because by the 80s, we just stopped listening to secular music.
Yeah.
And so you had just switched gears in your music.
Yeah.
So for me, I listen to Christian music and I listen to secular music interchangeably.
I do. It's been interesting. The last 2 years, I have kind of stopped listening to a lot of the old rock just because I'm trying to get my mind right in case I die. I'm like, maybe I can.
Maybe get things right before I go, you know?
But every once in a while, I'll sneak in, some Grand Funk Railroad. Just because I have to. I'm like,
Right.
I got to listen to something with a really, really strong
rhythm and
and
funk.
beat. You know, a lot of drums. You know,
Yeah.
Grand Funk was a great drummer.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, their drum sets. The drummer had double basses. They probably had 15 tom-toms around them.
Yep. Well, it's like having a cheat meal once a week, right? With your music. Every once in a while, you listen to a little bit of Creedence Clearwater Revival.
I've been trying to do workouts.
Oh, yeah? Oh,
on Christian music.
Oh, no, Chris.
It can't. It's just not.
Does
it's
not
just
compute.
not compute. So I'll listen to a podcast though.
Oh, really?
A very positive. I'll listen to positive.
I listen to nothing. No music. I leave my phone in the car.
Really?
Psychopath. Because it's like, what happens
because I'm working out.
Well, what happens?
And what am I going to be distracted?
Yes, but what happens when the music stops? What are you going to do then? Oh, I don't have any motivation because I need this thing to get me going. It's like, well, you don't need it. You got all the tools yourself.
I used to run 6 miles a day. Every morning I wake up 6 miles.
Yeah.
And I ran 2 marathons. Finished two. 4 hours and 6 minutes and 4 hours and 7 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
2 years in a row. And that was, about 40 pounds ago.
Right.
But anyway, when I used to run, we couldn't afford any other stuff. So I didn't have headsets.
Yep.
So I didn't have any music. And it was an hour. It took me an hour to run 6 miles.
Yeah.
And it was just total quiet.
Absolutely.
And then I ended up bringing like verses with me, and I'd try to memorize a verse, and I'd just
reading and running.
Well, I'd have one verse.
Okay, yeah.
And I'd have one verse, and I'd try to memorize it.
Yeah.
And I'd try to memorize it the first 3 miles, and then contemplate it the second 3 miles.
Ooh, okay.
And it got. I mean,
That's a regular discipline.
I was a better Christian back then.
Right. And what was it? Because you were physically fit? Because your discipline? Was that what it was?
Well, I was new on the fire department, and I had never exercised my whole life. I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I can't remember it. I was in 87, whatever.
It was a good year.
80, whatever. You weren't even.
That was a good year.
Yeah.
That was a really good year.
Speaking of which, exercise.
Exactly.
Which is weird. We had a message today on health.
Yeah.
At our church. It's like, okay, we're going to talk about health.
Yeah. And the week before was finances, and now it's health. It's like, wow.
Being blessable,
right? And so here we are, like, learning about all these practical life things. I'm like, this is nice.
Which is interesting. You go to some churches, and this is where people say, Bayside, and my church up in Ohio, they're like, they're kind of like elementary. They're like kind of visitor friendly. They're maybe fourth grade level.
Right.
And I'm I'm a college student.
Right.
We go deep. We go into one verse and we pull it apart for 45 minutes.
Right.
And then we go home and don't do anything.
And then forget about it.
So there's that.
Yeah.
There are people that are like, no, you got to go in deep. And there's people that like
All
they're
the more
intellectuals.
power to them.
Not anyone at this table.
Not us. We're two dunces. We're trying to bang rocks together and make fire.
We actually believe that we're going to still do something with our life. I'm run out of time.
Yeah.
You got a lot more time.
Well, you still got a car wash to run, my friend.
No, I know. Things are going well with that.
Well, that's good to hear.
But anyway, so they're talking about health.
Yeah.
And they're talking about
nice.
Why is it healthy? So we know that you are into, obviously, your physique. It's huge. You're huge, man.
Thank you. I'm what? Say it again.
Were you a skinny little kid?
Absolutely. I was a twig when I was a kid. So I was like, I'm going to do something about it.
When I grew up, they used to have these jeans. They were called Husky.
Yeah. And that was a very polite way of saying.
Oh, my gosh. And my mom, the guy would say, well, hey, why don't you just try these Huskies on? I'm like.
When you hear that, it's
you're
like
God. I don't even know how to swear, and I swore at the guy. Like, I'm not a husky.
Right.
Okay.
Dingus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Try these pants on.
Yeah. Oh, what are you going to fit into skinny jeans, kid?
But they don't say that anymore. They just say, here's a 38.
Yeah, now it's a number. But still, the number hurts. Like, I was up to 225 pounds. I was a 36 waist. And my whole life, I was like always like a 32, 34, and here I am. I'm like, 36, what the heck? But I didn't even really think about it because I'm like, I know I can lose weight. And so now, like, I bought a bunch of stuff for a wedding during this 225-pound period of my life. And so now, like, none of the belts fit, and I have, like, all these pants, these pants that are, like, way too loose. And I'm like, Well, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, and then the more you tighten your belt, the more you look ridiculous. Look like
you got this giant flap hanging out here.
Take crap in your pants, and no one would know.
Exactly. The giant belt cinches all the way over here. You're running out of real estate, and it's like, that doesn't fit you anymore. Swimming.
So let's talk about what he the passage he started out with. Over there on Luke 2:52.
Yeah, so, and it says that this is when Jesus was young and he was like learning in the temple. So this is in a spiritual context and what this is talking about. But it says, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. So what he's talking about is like Jesus was growing up and he was becoming matured and respectable in the specific spiritual area of his life.
There's no passages in the Bible or that anybody knows about from Jesus from when he was 12 until he was 30.
Right. This is all we get.
That's all you get. That's it.
That's literally
and
it.
So it's interesting how a really good pastor can get an hour message out of
from that
absolutely nothing. And it was kind of cool because his whole thing is, well, let's go on. Jesus grew in wisdom and stature. So he was a carpenter. So, carpenters are not skinny little runt guys.
Right.
I mean, they're pretty strong.
They're in shape.
Especially back then, they had the big mallet hammer.
Yes.
And they didn't have power tools.
Yeah, hand tools only. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's like how, and also like there was no processed food, fast food. There was no abundance of food back then. So everybody was probably like 5'8", like 160 pounds at most. And everybody was like just super crazy lean and fit and all this. So it's like part of it is just that's how everybody was.
Right.
But there is definitely something to be said as a carpenter. You're working with your hands all day. You're doing heavy physical things. He was definitely in good shape. Plus, everybody back then walked around to get everywhere.
Right.
So everybody's moving constantly. If you had a physical like defect, like if you had like leprosy is talked about a lot in the New Testament, or if you had like a shriveled hand or something, you got left behind.
Yeah.
Those were the people that
you
were
like
down.
figure it out.
Yeah. It was like, sorry, can't keep up.
Figure out. There's 2 pins.
Yeah. And so that was a lot of what Jesus' ministry was to those people.
And he concluded that by saying, and he had to be that way because anybody else would have never been able to take the beating that he had for you and for me, and then actually carry a wooden cross, which was probably, it had to be probably 300-400 pounds.
A couple hundred pounds, yeah.
300 or 400, that would be much.
Yeah, but if you're dragging it as opposed to lifting the whole weight of it, that helps somewhat.
We'll say it was only 200 pounds.
Yeah, right.
It takes everything I have to do 200-pound bench press.
Big logs.
Can you do 200 pounds?
Yeah, I can do bench press 200 pounds, but dragging it for many miles is a whole other story.
After getting beat,
right?
So he had to be kind of a tough guy. See how I didn't say badass?
Well, then you just said it. Still just said it.
Anyway, but he was tough. And so I think that he went to that. He's like, because God knew that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
He was a strong man because he carried the cross for you and for me.
And there's obviously, it wasn't just his own strength. It was the spiritual strength within him and God's might working through him, obviously.
Right.
But yes, Jesus was a strong man.
And so that's where he's going to, he must have been strong and he must have been healthy. And so why shouldn't we, if it was important for God, for Jesus to be a strong, healthy man, why would it not be for you and me?
I'll tell you why. Okay. And even before I saw this paper, I already knew this was exactly what it's going to be on the paper because you hear this all the time. If you're in Christian circles a lot, the younger non-denominational churches, especially like the health nuts like me, you'll hear this phrase a lot. Our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit. Already I knew this was going to be on here. This was kind of a given. But it's the reason why is because it's so true. This is from 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19 and 20. It says, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? you are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. That is an amazing verse for this whole point that we're trying to make, which is like...
Which is in the Bible.
It is in the Bible. It's in 1 Corinthians. Paul wrote this. The temple in the Old Testament was this beautifully immaculate, incredibly constructed work of like architectural miracle. It was all plated with gold on the inside. There was gemstones around the banisters. There was these specific kind of cedars from Lebanon that were like the banisters and the support beams, and it was just this incredible declaration to God. Why? Because you're honoring God in this, giant place of worship, and you want to show God how much you love and adore and care for him because he's God and he's holy and he's perfect, and you want, the God of ages to be revered, so you're going to give him this incredible house to dwell in, right? Because that's what the temple was the Spirit of God dwelt in it. And now, if we're to say, which this is true as Christians,
biblical concept,
the same Spirit that dwelled in the temple now dwells in us. If the temple was immaculate and was gold like our microphones here,
golden,
should not our bodies be kept at the same level of reverence?
Amen, brother.
Come on,
preach it.
So I need to wear all this jewelry, right? I need to put all this money on my body, right? No, not the same.
No, that's bling.
Oh, that's bling? I can't do that?
Well, you can, but it's...
Okay.
You look like... Stop.
Who? Look like who?
I don't know. I'm just thinking of John Travolta and Saturday Night Live.
Yep.
Saturday Night Fever.
Saturday Night Fever, yep.
He's got that gold chain.
Right. Yeah. Or what was the Flava Flav with the enormous clock?
Oh, yeah.
Chain. Exactly. So I'm not doing that.
Yeah. That's on the outside.
Oh, that's on the outside.
So, one of our other pastors, he said this, and we've mentioned it before, is that we're actually, so instead of the temple, we are now a host. I want to be a good host for the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, does God really care about our body? Mm-hmm. Well, it's saying that.
It says that we should take care of the place where God dwells.
It's saying if it's a temple, nobody's saying, okay. There are husky children.
Yes.
I'm certainly, I'm not like the...
You're not Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, I very rarely go without my shirt in public.
Okay.
As soon as I get out of the pool, I put my shirt on.
Right,
okay?
so I get what you're saying.
Okay, and that's okay too. I mean, but it's that when you're we need to be a better steward of this thing.
That's ultimately what it's saying.
And one, because God dwells in it, but two, you're going to get older. You're not always going to...
Practically, yes.
When I got hired on the fire department, I had to take a test. I worked in construction my whole life. And then I'm 25 years old, and they have you take this physical fitness test before you can get on. And they're like, okay, do push-ups. Mm-hmm. And I've been carrying bricks. I've been carrying shingles,
right?
And they're like, you got like 2 minutes to do like 20 push-ups, and I'm like,
that's hilarious. Yeah,
20. And they're like, fine, you're fine, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You're golden. Well, all of a sudden, after sitting around the fire station, you're in your late 30s,
right?
And you're not doing push-ups anymore or carrying bricks. Your metabolism starts slowing down, and so when you're not, when you don't take care of this,
right,
then all of a sudden you have this weight, and which then. In our society today, we've got this epidemic with with type 2 diabetes, and
which is caused from the syrup that we're eating. We're just eating gobs of
and it's not even sugar anymore.
It's right
high fructose corn syrup,
right,
which
That's
is
even worse.
They're saying it's even worse, which is crazy.
Yeah, but it's just because
praise God, this isn't pre. Elon Musk on Twitter. We would never.
We would be canceled.
We'd be canceled.
Yeah, we'd be canceled. But it's
now we have RFK, man.
Right.
He's like, hey, I'm going to promote those.
He's going to get in there. He's going to make everybody healthy. We're going to not eat as much McDonald's. Every once in a while, we'll have a little McDonald's, not too much. But I think this is a hard point to try and say. It's like, hey, if we're going to be honest, like, and to what you were saying earlier about, like, you're going to get older and you got to continue to be in tip-top shape. Because, like, what are you doing 60% of the time as a firefighter? You're not actually doing firefighting.
No, you're clicking.
You're clicking
the clicker.
Right.
Yeah.
You're sitting around eating chili.
You're resting because you never know when you're going to get the call.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. We didn't get a call all day today, so it was 24 hours sitting on a chair, which I have done.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you did that plenty of times.
And then the clicker broke, and no one would even get up to change the channel.
And here we are
on the TV watching some stupid program. We're like, why are we watching that? And say, well, you want to change the channel? Get up there and change it. No, like, well, I'm not going to get up.
You're
you're watching for another 4 hours.
You're the frontline defense of our nation's health and safety, and here you are. I don't even want to get up and change the channel.
It's a true story.
You guys are crazy. But all that to say,
that's why I look like I do.
You slid back into your old ways. Our physical health affects our spiritual health.
Yeah.
How is this? Well, poor health can hinder your ability to serve. Fatigue, poor nutrition, lack of motivation, getting up off the couch and changing the channel can affect your focus, energy, and endurance in ministry and in daily life.
Well, you need to do ministry. Mm-hmm. You have to get up off the couch. Oh,
yes.
Wait a minute. If you can't get up off the couch because you're unhealthy, and I'm not, there's skinny people that can't breathe and can't walk.
Yeah.
So it's not about size.
Right.
And there's some big people
That's so good.
that if they ever caught you, they'd wring your neck. There's some pretty big firefighters.
The BMI index, you know what that is? The body mass index?
Which you talked about. Yeah.
Exactly. The whole idea that, like, it's an arbitrary number that you're assigned. Like, I think I'm obese. My weight, I'm overweight.
Me too.
But you wouldn't call me out of shape. Like, NFL players are morbidly obese. But you wouldn't say to an offensive linebacker that he's out of shape.
Right.
He could probably murder us with his bare hands.
Yeah.
He's a bear of a human being.
Yeah.
But it's just a number that we assign to him. And the number says this is overweight and this is underweight. And it's like, yeah, but it's all about how you move and how you're able to manipulate. Because it's like, it doesn't matter what you got as long as you know what to do with it.
Because there's people like, they just have a big frame. I mean, my family have broad shoulders. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
And when you have broad shoulders and you were raised in construction, you carry shingles up a ladder.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, your broad shoulders get broader.
Right. You're out here looking like you got wings.
And then there's other people that are like, they don't have shoulders.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. They
built different.
They just don't have shoulders.
They're built different.
And so, like you said, they're different.
Yeah.
So we're not saying size is the question. We're saying health-wise. We're saying being able to do it. Now, yes, size matters.
So a lot of times it does.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think it's what these next points are here: the nutrition, movement, and rest and renewal. I mean, like you can still be like, for you go on a walk regularly every day. Yeah. That's above average. That's great. That's better than most.
Right,
that's good.
That's all you need to do.
Exactly.
Oh, but you got to quit eating Twinkies. Remember when he brought that up?
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And that's exactly the point I wanted to make. It's like, yeah, there's different levels of exercise and there's different levels of physical fitness. And for some people, they can look this way. And it's like, and a huge part of it, they always say abs are made in the kitchen. I'd say maybe more than half of physical overall fitness is nutrition. I think that's very easy to say. That what you put into your body, it says here, food is either fuel or poison.
Yeah.
And so what you really need to know is, like, the idea of the temple being the body being the temple of the Holy Spirit. What are the sacrifices that you're making in the temple? Are these good sacrifices? Are these the spotless lamb? Is this the unblemished pigeon, right? Yeah. What kind of sacrifices are you bringing into the temple? Are you bringing your best to your temple? Yeah. Right? Because the whole thing about the cleansing of the temple and of the different kinds of preparations that they had to do were super meticulous in how sacrifices were made. I mean, it was like the fat of the hindquarters of the lamb are burned for this long, and then the spotless lamb, and then you cut it this way, and then you bring it to this much. It was always bringing your first fruits to God. And that was a whole thing in the Old Testament about the way that sacrifices were done, is you bring your best and you bring the first of what you receive and you give it back to God. And that's what you put into the temple. Take that same principle to now with our bodies. You bring the best into your body. If you're eating Twinkies all day, that's not a good sacrifice to bring to God.
Right. Well, and let's add that verse, 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whatever you eat or drink or whatever you do all for the glory of God. And so let's tie these two together. See, in the world that we live in today, okay, scientifically it's not true. This is Chris's opinion.
Okay.
That and 50 cents will get you a cup of coffee, which was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That and $4.50 will get you a cup of coffee.
Bro science. Yeah.
But we tend to box things off. Why does what I'm eating have to do anything with the spiritual realm?
Yeah. Why are we talking about this at all?
Yeah.
On a
Why
Christian
does that
podcast?
have to? And what we're trying to say is that they are all one.
Yes.
It's when you eat right, you think right.
When you think right,
you act right, or you understand things, or there's a clarity. You know, you talk to people that are in fasting, and they'll get that fasted for 3 or 5 or 6 or a week or a month.
Yeah.
There's a clarity that happens, and so you cannot say it scientifically that the spiritual part is connected to the food part.
Right.
But it's saying it is.
It's saying it is in the Bible.
It's saying it is spiritually. It's just that we live in a country that says, no, that has nothing.
Right.
We live in a country that you don't know about. When I mentioned this, I think once or twice before.
Yeah.
When I grew up, back in my day, Will,
Old school. Yeah.
for you to go out to eat was didn't happen.
Really?
There was not restaurants in every corner. You might see a pizza place.
Really? Okay.
Might see a pizza place.
What year?
You
roughly?
might see in the 60s.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you just didn't. It just wasn't there. There might be a family restaurant.
Right. Yes. Mom and pop diner.
Yeah, and maybe people went there, but most people ate at home with their mom and dad at a kitchen table.
Really?
In the evening.
Whoa, not at a kitchen table, at a dining room
At
table.
a dining room table.
There's a separate room for that because it was an established, we're going to sit down and eat a meal together.
You look at houses, there's a city called Lakewood on the west side of Cleveland that was built in the late 1800s.
Oh, yeah.
And the biggest room in the house is the dining room. The kitchen's like the size of this table.
Yeah.
The living room is maybe, it's got a fireplace in there and maybe room for 2 or 3 chairs. But the dining room was massive.
Really?
And you're like, wow, it's really bad that they didn't separate. No, that's where everything happened.
That was where everything happened. That's exactly
So so when you went out to eat in the 70s, when it became more and more popular, when McDonald's started becoming, let's go to McDonald's, man. That's like, which was a treat for, well, again, I had 10 people in my family, so I could be totally wrong. There'd be,
right.
We grew up in this Middleborough Heights, which all the rich kids. We were the poor kids in the neighborhood. It's horrible. I hated it. But anyway, maybe they went to the restaurant. But when you went to a restaurant, it was special.
Yes. Yeah, it was an establishment.
It was like special. Let's go out to dinner.
Right.
It's once a week. Now, I'll go out to dinner twice a day.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is,
2 dinners.
Here's the funny thing. If I go out to breakfast,
Yeah.
if I have breakfast with somebody, there's a higher chance, and this is totally scientific.
Okay.
I have the research data someplace.
You just winked at me, so okay.
If I go out to breakfast, I'll probably end up feeling bad about that and say something to my wife and say, let me take you out to lunch. And I'll go out to lunch.
Oh, okay.
I'll say, hey, let's go out to lunch. Then I'll go out to lunch and I'll say, hey, let's go to dinner. If I go out to eat breakfast, there's a tendency for me to eat out the rest of the day.
Huh.
I swear. So, and it's really weird.
Yeah.
But I've mixed up.
Mixed up, okay.
Eating with a reward.
And
the world we live in now,
that's huge.
Eating out
Yeah.
is not a reward. In fact, it's a punishment.
Really?
Well, you see the portion and the amount of calories, and I mean, it's really, it's a reward.
Sure.
But it's like really not healthy.
It's instant gratification reward, but it's long term not.
Yeah. Or you'll go spend, you know how cheap I am.
Same. Yeah.
And I'll go out to eat, and we'll spend like $100, which is normal now to go out to a decent restaurant at night. And I'll go,
Yeah.
I could have went to Costco, got a whole tenderloin
Right. Yep.
for $100,
Yep.
and we could have had a better meal
Multiple meals
for the rest of our week.
Yeah. Exactly.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's huge. The reward part of it is I mean, we've gone on and on about the consumerism in this society and all this stuff, but I think we got the point across with food.
Yeah. So one more thing.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've replaced, and so we move it into filling a void.
Yeah. Yes.
We
exactly.
go to food
Mm-hmm.
instead of God.
Right.
Again, God's like, hey man, you're worshiping this food instead of going to me.
Yep.
And so God's saying, you got to be careful with this because
Yes.
it's
crutch.
addictive.
Oh yeah, eating is addictive. That's why there's fast food restaurants on every single corner. You can't look somewhere in public and not see a restaurant. Yeah. It's always, you have to go out of your way to find a healthy restaurant. Yeah. That's another thing.
I knew this guy lost like 70 pounds, and I said, what'd you do? He goes, I do not eat anymore in a place that has a drive-thru. And he lost 70 pounds.
Yep. Most people, more than half people, when they make like huge adjustments in their weight, it's just from diet changes. Yeah. That's huge.
Spiritual.
Next up, we could talk about movement. Yes. The second.
What do you do? What do you do for movement?
What do I do? Oh, you don't want to get my workout routine it's not brutal. I wouldn't call it brutal, but it's very intensive, and like I know people that do CrossFit, and that's brutal. CrossFit's brutal. That's
I did that for like 6 months.
I did that for 6 months. Horrible. Almost threw up twice. Yeah. In public.
Yeah.
Never want to do that. So the workouts that I do, I mean, it's mostly just strength training because I want to look like the Incredible Hulk, or maybe Lou Ferrigno, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Green, red.
Right. Yeah. Green skin, red hair. Wouldn't be a very good combo. I'd look like Christmas.
You'd stand out, though.
I would stand out. But I want to just be, bigger. I want to be caveman, Conan the Barbarian. But for me, obviously I do cardio and stuff like that too. What's really important for me is it's not just because, physical fitness is like maintaining your health, maintaining. I want to grow. I want to continue
You're 23.
to gain. 23. I'm 23. So I can still add mass to my body in a healthy way, right? Like if you hear, it's so funny because in my circles, like the gym culture has become such a big part of who we are. I realized how ridiculous this sounded. I went up to this girl. Remember Brielle?
Yeah.
She was big on because she had stopped doing softball. She was lifting in the gym. She's all about trying to be bigger and look more muscular because it's very big with like Gen Z being all in the gym working all the time. I realized how ridiculous this was because we talked about it for a long time. We're good friends. We're big gym buddies. I said, "Oh, you look like you put on some weight." She goes, "Really? Thank you." And I was like, "Yeah, you look great." And I realized, oh my God, that sounded
why he's not married right now.
Well, no, it wasn't. But it sounded so ridiculous. Exactly, it sounded ridiculous.
Yeah. Most women don't.
What did you just say?
That is not a compliment.
It's like that is the opposite of a compliment. But she was like, "Oh, thanks. I'm trying to look bigger," and it's like it's working. But because now what I think is really cool about this gym culture is putting a lot of emphasis on motivation, courage, strength, not just maintaining, because it's going for a walk is really good for you, and you should do that to maintain where you want to be down the road 40, 60 years. But we're getting to a point where we're pushing new boundaries and we're gaining. And so ultimately what I want to do with my physical fitness, as in with what we were saying earlier, is all aspects of my life I want to give to God. And so if I'm really giving my best the same way that you would give your best sacrifice at the temple, I want to do my absolute best with my physical health and my physical fitness. So I give him 110% of, that aspect of me, because I really do want to look great.
And the size of your biceps is not
right
the ultimate goal. It's a goal.
It is a goal.
The ultimate goal.
Ultimate goal
the
is
ultimate goal. But that's really hard thing to do because you get addicted to working out. I mean, it's like
It's an ego trip
anything
too.
else.
That's another thing is you got to watch out for the ego trip.
Well, you had said something about forward motion that our bodies are designed.
Well, it was in the moment it sounded stupid, but when you think about it, you're like, oh, actually, that's not bad. I was listening to a message from Pastor Randy not too long ago, and it was about obviously going back on old habits and things, but just something as simple as like the design of the human body. Human beings are designed to move forward. Our eyes point us forward. Our feet are pointed forward. Our knees bend forward. It's easier to reach in front of you for something than behind you because of the way our hinges are. And what's back? What's the one thing that's back? There's one thing on our bodies that's bad that's back.
Getting rid of our waist.
Exactly. The one thing that we're meant to leave behind is behind us, right? So our bodies are meant for forward movement, not forward facing, stagnant forward movement.
Okay.
So beyond just I'm gonna stay here and I'm gonna face forward. It's like, no, we gotta take steps. We gotta continue to push the bar, reach new heights. We were talking about it a couple episodes ago. There are the savages for God that go out there, the ones that like break the mold, the first generation Christians that really lean in a different way than the previous generations ever did before. And so there's something to be said about like, the chain breakers and the new goalpost movers that are really taking their faith and their evangelism seriously. And then another aspect of that is your physical health seriously.
Well, got multiple things.
Okay.
There is something about seeing a Christian up on, okay. When Pastor Randy goes up there to preach, he's a stud, man.
Oh yeah.
I look at his forearms. I can't
His
pay
form,
attention.
yeah.
I mean, he's got some forearms,
He's
and they're
like,
defined.
whoa. Yeah. When he does the overhand.
I think he probably doesn't do anything except for wrist rolls, man.
Yeah. Anything that you can see.
But it's like, as an adult man, close to his age, I mean, he'd probably get insulted if I said he's close to my age. He's probably 10 or 15 years. Hey, what do you think? He's 55?
56. Yeah.
Okay. He's 12 years younger than me.
Right.
I mean, I was a senior in high school when he was in kindergarten.
Exactly.
But anyway, I'm like, I'm paying attention to him, and I'm like, I have respect for him. Mm-hmm. He cares for himself.
Yes.
He's not on discipline. So go back.
Discipline, right.
Fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control.
Self-control.
And I can listen to him like, well, he's demonstrating part of the fruits of the Spirit, and he's not doing it intentionally. You're seeing it. You're like, he's got control. He's not like out of control. He's not undisciplined. I'm pretty sure that he doesn't have these other kind of problems because he's got that one, which is the hardest one.
It is the hardest one.
I can be loving and kind and joyful and all those other things.
Yeah.
Can I be self-disciplined?
Oh boy.
Not really good.
And that, just real quick to that, it's like, and there are some people where you physically can't look like Pastor Randy.
Right.
And that's fine. What you can control, do the best at that.
Yeah. Pastor Jonathan was the same thing. He wasn't like cut.
Right.
But you looked at him, you're like,
yeah.
He's got discipline.
Yes.
And so, and then when the words come out of their mouth, you're like, he's a godly man.
Yeah.
And so so there's the high school group. That's how me and Will met.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to the high school group.
Yep.
I was the oldest high school. I was 64, 6 or like that, 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was going there, and I'm like, but all those kids are like, "Come on, Meekins." I mean, they call me by my first name. Hey, Chris. They're like 15 years old.
Right.
They call me. But they're, Chris, come on over here. We're gonna play some baseball slide on water thing.
Oh, yeah, the slip and slide kickball. Yeah.
Because I could do it, they were like, "Yeah, Meekins."
Yep.
And they would listen. I was able to identify. They were like, "This is awesome. This old dude is playing Frisbee with us."
Yeah.
This old dude's doing these things. And
you can keep up.
Just for that fact, as older people, we want to be able to participate. Now, I would stop. I knew that, like, if I did any more, I was going to. But I wanted to be able to at least show up and do it. You want to reach the next generation. Yeah. You got to meet them where they're at. And they were playing Frisbee.
Yeah, and that's where they're at.
You can't play Frisbee with a walker. And I know people at my age that have a walker.
Really?
It's I feel bad. And maybe something else. Is there something else to it? But I still feel bad for them.
Yes.
And I know that, like, so my exercise it goes down to, I walk to the gym that's within, it's like 12, 14 minutes away.
Right.
I walk to LA Fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And on every other day, so on one day I go to the machines and I go through probably 10 machines.
Okay. Yep.
Then I do some stomach stuff, and then I turn around and I walk home.
Nice.
About 55 minutes.
Perfect.
And so I'm walking, I'm exercising.
That's great.
And it's getting me out of the thing.
Yeah.
The other day I do cardio, so I walk up there. I do the Stairmaster for 20 minutes.
Same. Yeah.
Which will get my heartbeat up to like 158. I'm like, man, one of these days it's going to go pop open.
My heart gets like 185.
Yeah, well, I'm 68.
I go hard.
I go hard.
Yeah, that's going hard.
I could go more. I think there's more to be had. But and then I walk home, and it's like it's golden. Yeah. Here's the funny thing: when I'm doing that, I feel like I'm taller when I'm walking up to the gym. I'm like, I got a nice shirt on. I'm not like looking like I'm pregnant. Right. And I feel taller.
So it's working, and it's better
for
for
your head.
Yes.
And then then when my head's right, then when someone's talking to me, I can share my beliefs. I'm not as afraid to share who I am because I'm okay with who I am. Do you think that that's the ultimate goal, that God wants you to be okay with who you are physically, mentally, and spiritually, and they all go together?
Yeah, I'd say yes. Well, because ultimately the goal for anything in life, the reason for us at this conversation, the reason for this table is to glorify God, right? And if we're going to try and explain to people how physical fitness can glorify God, it's like, well, doesn't that seem like the most egotistical practice ever? And it's like,
no.
Well, it can be.
Could be.
You gotta know that it can certainly be.
Yeah, being super smart, though, can be too.
Right, exactly. This mental fitness can be, but it's like, well, because back in the day, if you were like a Muscle Beach guy, it was like you're the egomaniac. Yeah. It's like, who actually works out like that? That guy's full of himself. He's a narcissist.
He's muscle bound.
Right. But if you're right up here because you're right in the body. So if my body's right, I feel good.
Right.
If I feel good, I can be at 110% in my mind.
Right.
If I can be 110% in my mind, I can glorify God with everything that I have and more.
And so we're here to say that the pastor was right. Yeah. That it's that it's body, mind, and spirit.
Yes.
And your spirit is part of it's part of it, and to just deny it. Mm-hmm. So we I'll wrap up real quick.
Yeah.
So we shared with this guy in my small group in the men's breakfast yesterday, shared his story about he was on dialysis every 4 or 5 times a week. I mean, a lot. Yeah. I mean, it was like done. So and he was like 350 pounds. And one day he's like, I gotta get up off the couch. And he started walking, and he walked 1.5 miles, and he felt like God was telling him to do that. And he got up to 1.5 miles, and then he got done with 1.5 miles, and he felt like, he said, I heard God go, you can do better. So he ended up doing another 1.5 miles and went to 3 miles. Nice. And he got healthier, and he got healthier, and he got healthier. And then he started working out at the gym in the middle, because I guess when you do dialysis, you're like, what physically wipes you out.
It wipes you out.
Well, then one day, this is like just 3 years ago, he ended up losing 130 pounds.
That's amazing.
Which is so cool.
That's
amazing. And
he's
he's like a big dude. I'm like, holy cow, how big were you?
Yeah.
And anyway, so he's 100. So he gets in church, and they're like, hey, we got a kidney for you. Come on up to Tampa. He gets a kidney, and within 3 days after he got his kidney, he was out of the hospital. And doctors are like, your body was ready for this.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about last week, making yourself blessable.
That's a great, all this to say
is when you do what God's telling you to do today, and maybe it's getting off the couch and walking 1.5 miles, you don't know what's coming down the pike.
Oh, yeah.
And in his case, it was like kind of like you're going to die because there's no kidneys to be had.
Failure, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, God provides a kidney, and he's coaching baseball for junior high kids.
Wow.
He coaches basketball for girls basketball league.
Yeah.
He's a coach by nature. He is the kindest, sweetest guy. Got a big smile. He greets people at the front door of church, shakes their hand. He's like, I'm here to welcome you in because you know what? God loves you. And I know that for a fact. And so when you do what you're supposed to do, you don't know what God's going to do with you. And so he does want you to be able to get up off the couch to go maybe have a podcast with some kid.
It's about being blessable. All this to say is if you are active, if you are prepared, the firefighter that stays fit and doesn't just sit on the couch and hit the clicker all day, who's ready for the action at the drop of a hat at any moment, that firefighter, that person who works out, the person who's ready for kidney surgery is allowing themselves to be blessable. So if you honor God with your body, God will give you more and he will bless you more.
And there's young people, there's skinny people that can't do stuff. If I want to have my marriage to keep on going, I mean, we've been married 45 years, and you still have to work at it. It requires work.
Yeah.
And if I can't get up down here in Florida, if I can't get up off the couch, or I'm too tired, or just don't feel like it to go watch the sunset, walk on the beach with the sunset, because I'm telling you what, you want to stir up your marriage, all you got to do is walk on the beach. I'm telling you, if there's any reason to come to Florida to a sunset, walk on the beach, and you're like, all of a sudden you feel like your wife loves you. She's like, I just love this. This is an amazing thing. And you're like, praise God, I can get up and walk on the beach.
That's good. Good to know. Thank you, sir. Let me use that one.
Hey.
See you next week.
Try. Try.
Hey, just mile and a half. Walk a mile and a half.
Let's see what happens. God bless you, man.
Peace.